ये है groundbreaking.
How's it going, Anshul? Welcome to the Groundbreaking.
Hi, Deepak. It's a really good privilege to be here, and I am doing well. All well. Bangalore weather, thankfully, has been really good this week.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thanks for coming all the way to this place. It took you like an hour and a half.
it's default right now in Bangalore to go
Yeah.
anywhere,
Yeah.
including minimum. If you step out of your house, it's gonna
Yeah.
cost you an hour to reach anywhere from anywhere. So
I mean, we have built such a crazy habit like by being in Bangalore that whenever you go to like a tier 2 tier 3 city and you realize that traveling to like for 20-30 kilometers not doesn't take that much time. It's like a different realization altogether.
so this has happened with me multiple times because here for 8 kilometers we leave at like 45 minutes earlier than whenever we have to reach in a tier 2 city. I did something similar, and it kind of I reached there in like 15 minutes, and I was like, what do I do now? Like, I'm waiting there for half an hour for the friend to appear, and then they're like, why are you here so early? I was like, I didn't anticipate this is going to take 10 minutes.
Awesome. So, Ashul, tell us a bit about yourself, the kind of stuff you've been doing, a little about your journey.
Okay, so right now I work with BCG as a design manager, branding specifically. But overall, right now, I'm like exploring further avenues just from like not limiting myself to just design, or let's say not just limited to 2D spaces. Like, I've already explored 3D back in my career, and then I came to design studios here at BCG, and then I started like, what do you say, sharpening a spear in branding. So that was my one go-to field. And along with that, now with the advent of AI, I've started doing coding. I've started working on prompt prompting to create videos and all of that. So there's not a, what do you say, right now I'm in a space where there's like a lot of other avenues that I'm exploring. But yeah, I mean, like, my journey started with engineering. So I did an aerospace engineering. Then I moved into a big MNC setup, which was like mostly coding, and then like outsourced work that comes to India from other parts of the world. And then I kind of was like, I don't see the impact of my work in the world, so how do I solve for that? And then I kind of ventured out into the fields of what are the other fields of design, or maybe I've been a little creative side, and like, what do you say, left brain thinker versus right brain thinker. So I chose that this is a field that has a lot of freedom to explore my skill set or inherent, mindset that you are born with. So I started exploring into design. Landed in Bangalore about 10 years ago. And then that's how my journey started towards where I'm at.
I think what I've noticed in your journey is that you've hopped from like some amazing brand names to different roles. Like you were at Swiggy. And I'm sure like at a senior position, then brands like Zolo. So what I've been seeing that you kind of been hopping different industries, and I think you are at BCG right now, and I'm sure you're consulting one of like this hypersensitive projects and some very confidential brands. And I understand that you maybe won't be able to talk about them, but what usually what kind of industry that you work around? What's your major role as a design manager doing like different things? I think now you are at a space where you're maybe exploring all of the industries that you experienced.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why I chose and said yes to BCG was this, because earlier when I was working with these startups, so Swiggy is a food tech, Zolo is a real estate tech startup, Razorpay is a fintech startup. Now at BCG, I get all those different kinds of work to be done in like a month's time. So I'm working with a retail startup in Middle East sometimes. I'm working with a, let's say, PSU in India. If I'm, or maybe I'm working with Middle East government to come up with like new educational programs and things like that. So there's a lot of variety of work that comes my way, and most of the work that I do is generally holistic brand development projects that I work on. So it's not just about give me a logo. It's more on the lines of, I mean, usually people who I don't know if you're in the same space, so you know how that starts. They generally have like, I need a logo for my brand, and what they do not understand is a logo is not a brand, or a brand is not a logo, right? And then you kind of push them, show them examples, and nudge them into a space where you kind of mold their thinking about their own business and how a well branded.
Yeah, even at BCG level?
Yes, you do.
Wow.
I mean, it's a, I mean, see, design, as much as I don't want to say this, but design is generally an afterthought at a lot of places, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the core product is already made. MVP has been tested with by product managers, product marketing managers, co-founders, developers. Once you have that, what do you say, the atom of the brand ready is when the auxiliary functions come in. Design is generally an auxiliary function, not product design always, but that also, like, it comes in a little later.
Yeah.
The design part.
Very interrelated.
Yes, exactly. So that comes like very later stage of like a lot of these technology first companies, where they would be building a system, design system. Like we have the core functionality sorted. Now we need to kind of make it user friendly or make it look like such that there's a, when a user comes in, it kind of, they want to play with the psychology through marketing, or they want like increase the scale up of the, that's where the design comes in. So yeah, I mean, that's how we function still in my space of the work that we are at. Like you have to, they'll come up with like, we need a logo, and like, why do you need it? Because they are like, there are chance 50% ratio. There's a chance they already have a logo and they're looking for a rebrand because they feel the logo looks outdated. There was a trend of gradients that was happening back in, I don't know, 17, 16, and they made a logo basis that trend, and now the logo looks outdated because the colors are so faded. So that's one of the problems that we are trying to solve for. And we kind of give them an example that these kind of brands, the brands who have like legacy value, 80 years, 100 years, they've been the same brand for 80, 100 years. The reason behind that is there was a deep thought given to that brand, and it kind of sustains through the time. So like you create a timelessness in your thinking that sustains through decades and eras. So that's what I try to do and build and inculcate in my audience.
What do you think? Like a 80-year-old brand, like the difference, just curious to know, like what's the difference between like a brand that's 80, 100-year-old and like 20-year-old in terms of the rebranding process?
So that 80-year-old brand would probably be behaving like a 20-year-old brand back in, let's say 1940. They would still be in that era of like, who are we? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to explore, right? So that, but what they would have sustained is the idea behind like the designers, like visionally, or let's say a Paula Scher would have kind of thought of these things in terms of like 70 years down the line. If I would look at this logo, would it still stick? Would it still hold values true? So these brands are those brands that have these co-founders and like those people who stick with the same business. They had an idea, central idea about a business, and then they kind of stuck with it for their lifespan, right? Like a brand like a Mercedes that has that three trident logo that still exists, and they would have modified it a little bit here and there, but overall still has been the same.
They extended it to like EV.
Yes, now they have kind of changed a little bit into that space. So that's what I feel, that these brands are like, now they have hit that plateau, or that what do you say, flight height,
Yeah.
where they can sustain that flight height. Now, these brands that you're talking about, the 20-year-old brands or like 10-year, 5-year brands, these are like constantly re-innovating because the space or the era that we are living in is like changing. So from 90s to today, where you don't even need to pick up your phone to call a friend versus going out and visiting a PCO, dialing, and then, or maybe having to go to a space, asking an operator to kind of connect you to your friend, versus here we are,
Yeah.
right? So that all of that is crunched into this 35, 40-year span.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's okay. I mean, it's fine. You have to be innovating all the time.
That reminded me of that Mercedes example. Reminded me of Jaguar's logo. Did you see the outrage on the social media?
Yeah, like
And I think they are now looking for another agency to kind of revamp it. Did you hear about?
yeah, they let go of the people who did it.
It's crazy. Like I haven't seen anything like that for in a long time.
I
This
read
is the
that
time I've started.
recently as well. So I was skeptical of the logo initially, but then they launched that car. Guilty, but I like that car. It was very dope car. And when they showed, they had that like viral video going of a person kind of driving it on the street. It had an appeal, I would say. It had that X factor, but I don't know. They let go of that. There must be something behind the scenes that did not stick with them, and the problem is they have wiped themselves from all the platforms. So I don't know how they're gonna be building it back. So let's see how that.
This is going to be very interesting where they go from here.
Yeah.
So out of all the industries, I've noticed in our conversation outside the podcast that you were really intrigued with gaming sector especially, and I think you've spent some time working around Web3, building Web3 brands as well. Do you also get chance to like work with gaming brands, and how or I think you've been doing a lot of experiments as well.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I would not say that I am a person who is into game development. I would say I'm a more like a consumer. But then my thinking is such that, what are games? Games are basically immersive experiences, right? So anything that you're doing, life is an immersive experience for that matter, right? I mean, like, but in games, what I look at is how the UI is designed along the way of the theme of the game. If it's a gritty game, right, and then the UI is like very tech, it doesn't work. The UI of the game versus the experience that you have on like your controller or your phone or the sound design, everything needs to come together. And that I would like to draw a corollary to branding. Creating a brand world is also similar experience, right? If you're doing you're creating a brand which has this logo which is like very sleek looking and the graphics are all gritty, it doesn't kind of work together, right? So you need to have like all the touch points of the brand needs to have that kind of a that sort of experience. And in the games, in the games that I play, usually like the Cyberpunk 2077, the launch of that game was co-authored with their audience in a way where they kind of revealed like 20-second teaser, then they did like a 5-minute gameplay video. Then there was this space where they were trying to have these conferences, and then they revealed Keanu Reeves, which became like a "You Are Breathtaking," if you remember that meme. That's where it came from. And then the game was launched. I mean, that's a different day conversation how it kind of launched, but then they stuck with the game, and here we are.
It kind of blew up as well, right?
Yeah, it was highly anticipated. This is the same studio that did Witcher 3, right? So after Witcher 3's success, these guys were like looking at things. Everyone was very hopeful for the game.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. And so like the joy of, when you're revealed certain bits and pieces of a new part, and you have that conversation as like two people who are sitting, and you, like, let's say there is going to be a game launch that's going to happen, or like a brand launch for that matter. We are sitting and having this conversation about, did you see that logo?
Yeah.
Like, if you remember this Jaguar thing that we were just talking about, they just had revealed like initial brand. Then everyone was talking about it, right? And you were also a part of the narrative. That kind of experience that you're building
Yeah.
is how I kind of take my inspiration.
Yeah, that reminds me of Gran Turismo, like how all these Chiron and like super limited edition and a lot of, I think, car brands were building games, car models just for the game,
Yes,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Just,
So
just crazy.
I mean, it gives it. So you see what I'm saying? Like, a brand is not just
Like maybe they spent like $1 million.
It's supposed to be an experience,
Yeah.
right? You need to have these various touch points that needs to work together in unison, so that when you're experiencing it anywhere, you know that this particular touch point is from that. You don't need to put a logo there. If you've done it right, you don't need a logo on a random touch point you want to put out in the world, if you have done it right. So that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like today, like the value of world building is also like, I feel that lines are a little blurry these days, like a lot of brands are collaborating with gaming world, and I've always put gaming industry on the top, because the amount of R&D tech in terms of art, design, programming, development is something that they always, they are actually pushing the scene, is what I feel. I've closely seen so the college where I've studied, it was a design college, and it also had like a gaming department. And bunch of these folks spent almost 8 years building this game called Raji. Have you
I've
heard of
played
it?
that
Like,
game. Yeah.
and it took 8 years, and it took like all, like so much money, time, and like investment. But at the same time, stuff like this around the world is kind of pushing the scene. Even gamifying things, right? Suddenly it's like a prerequisite with a lot of apps. Cred has built a product that is like has a lot of gamification stuff. So I genuinely feel all these words are kind of worlds are kind of collaborating at this point. Do you also feel that out there, like when you work with brands?
Definitely. So, like, when you say that gamifying, if you know already, I don't know if you do, but that Instagram scroll, like pull down to refresh, is a direct corollary from the slot machine. So that's how they have hacked the process. Like, in a slot machine, you pull that lever down,
Yeah.
and that kind of every time it starts, so that operates on the idea of psychological pull of your happiness hormones. And they did invent, like, they already, it was in existence, and then they kind of pulled it into Instagram, and then now you have that pull to refresh feature, where it every time you pull to refresh, it kind of gives you that. And the whole process of that idea, like vertical scroll, also comes from similar, where you are waiting for something better. So like 777 in that slot machine, or bananas, is what you're waiting for on your screen now. So it's not like 3 strips rolling, but it's just one, and you're looking for better content all the time. So you're just scrolling and scrolling.
Yeah.
So that's how the whole idea. So if you're hacking something, or like it's like neurological hacking of people's minds, that's what it is. But in a way, you can take inspiration from there and maybe make your products or your world or your brand kind of in that space. So similar to that, Call of Duty did something similar. I think after this 2015, your regular games, initially it was launched as like a FPS shooter, sort of, where the cutscenes were more like you play, like there's a cutscene that will play, and then you'll be dropped on a map. You have to finish an objective, and then when you're done, there's another cutscene. That's how the story was started. Now, the new Call of Duty games, if you'd ever go and play. These are like 5-hour games, by the way, selling for 7,000 rupees. And these games are like basically you are a action hero in that movie. You are the main lead of that movie, and there is like there are cutscenes, but most of the things are happening. So it's like a collective 5-hour experience that you're getting for that. And that's how they're selling it at like $70
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
piece.
And also, I mean, they're pushing so much, like there's sound design, visual design, strategy, you multiple worlds, colliding into each other and stuff like that. And I think that's also getting extended to real life brands. I think we've also talked about store experience and how they are like a lot of brands are trying to implement XR into their whole
Yeah.
world. And I think in order to kind of come out as a brand that's future forward, you need to do stuff like that. What do you think we are heading with such approach?
So I think right now where we are at is like there are a lot of brands who are trying to venture into this space, and these are like hit and miss things at the moment. But eventually, there is going to be a future where you'll be device free. And then that in that future is where your experience, or like the XR thing that we were talking about, that they're constantly reinventing the AR glasses. Now I think Meta has also come up with another one. There was a Ray-Ban thing,
Yeah, Ray-Ban and
all of that. So now imagine if we are speaking with each other and there is a script going here, or if we do like, if you want to read someone else's vitals for a doctor, you have a AR glasses and then you can just read the vitals on your screen. So these kind of things will happen. Right now what I see is like, I think there was a screen thing that I had seen, like you have these window displays.
yeah,
There, if you're walking, it'll sense you and then ask you to stand in a spot, and it'll depth sense there's a camera out there, and then it'll read your thing, and then you'll be able to wear anything that is inside the store without even going in. And then if you want to buy something, you can just gesture it and it'll add it to your cart, and the person will come out and then kind of give it to you.
that's super groundbreaking. But I'm not really sure if they're. I mean, even if it to be able to do like a demo of sorts,
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy.
I think it's fairly easy
But it
because of
sounds like,
AI.
yeah, it sounds like
you
it's not
have-
a big deal, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
if you
in terms of execution.
yeah, execution of it, I can break it down right now in my head. It's not that difficult. The selling of that idea or the sticking of that idea is what we are like still exploring, because tech forward people like us know, understand, and interact and know how to interact with it. But a lot of these people who we are, so mass market adoption of that will take some amount of time at least. Like it'll be fairly, I think 5 more years it'll take to kind of get there, where like a lot of these people are able to interact, or maybe people like us would have
Yeah.
the glasses are all AR glasses, or
Yeah.
we'll take some more amount of tech innovation to happen. So like you remember that these quantum chips that these guys have launched recently. I think Microsoft also came up with
Yeah.
their own one. So with that, we don't know how much processing power you can pack in how little a space.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty cool. Like the XR thing that we were just discussing, that has been in your fighter plane heads up displays since 1980s, and we are
Oh yeah.
yet to get like a mass adopted AR screen or like a AR device.
Exactly. So one of my best friend is actually a aeronautic fanatic guy,
Mhm.
kind of a guy, and he works with aerospace. And every time I meet him, he tell me about this, like one or the other tech that's been there for like 30 years. That sounds like magic. But at the same time, it's like millions and millions of dollars worth of money, which is just crazy. But I think a lot of this very high scale, high fidelity resource and devices gonna be normalized, and it maybe gonna be the next big thing. I'm seeing two different worlds here. So one world is where a lot of online D2C brands are starting their offline stores, physical stores, and then there are a bunch of people, young people. Maybe it's just two different world altogether. I've seen people in their mid teens or late teen just watching people play video games,
Hmm.
habits like them. So like once like a set of big chunk of people are hooked on to streaming. They're looking at people playing some very high competitive games on a very high level. At the same time, there's people are kind of fatigued with the digital presence of all these brands and trying to like expecting some kind of an experiences in offline stores. What where are we going ahead with these like two different?
So I definitely feel there is an avenue to be explored for both of these sides of the coin. This is the same thing. I mean, like people who are online, they want to go offline. People who are offline want to go online. That is going to happen everywhere. And there's enough tech right now out there that you actually can do both. So for let's say a startup which is trying to sell a bike to their consumers, and they want them to feel how the engine sort of revs, they can actually code it into a haptic motor, and then you can feel that rev of an engine in that motor. So that's like offline. Like primarily these markets were what, like offline stores where you, if you want to feel the bike or whatever, you had to go there. Now they have kind of moved into this like digital space. Similarly, let's say if you have a, a online fashion store or a furniture store, right, and you want to feel the texture of the material that's on, let's say, a piece of furniture, you can probably code that into the haptic motor of your device, and while you scroll on the picture of that, you get that feeling through the haptic motor of the phone. So it's fairly possible, and I think these guys sooner or later are gonna be, it's gonna get to a space where like physically hugging someone, which is like digital, all digital. You're on a call and then you're like, oh, okay, I can feel like, uh, the presence of the other person and that kind of stuff. So the next thing would probably be like more projections, like your Star Wars stuff, where you kind of sit it down and then you have that projector happening and then you're interacting with your loved ones through that.
I think that's something that a lot of brands or like companies, tech companies are also trying to crack for even decade,
Yeah.
right? And still, so so just like how we used to see in movies in like 1970s, how the world would look in like 2020.
Yeah. It's not though, but it's getting there, I guess. There's like I think there's a in a evolution of this digital computer is there is a key what do you say, some kind of like unlock that needs to happen. As soon as that happens, I think all of this, I think AI is that. I mean, so the reason why I know, understand, and kind of can deconstruct a lot of what we are talking about is through the help of AI, where I don't limit myself to nowadays. Like I was limited because of my knowledge, when it would take me another 6 months to learn a tool like maybe Adobe Dimension or a Blender or like a After Effects, and then I would be able to make it to a stage where I can showcase things that I'm doing in like 6 months. Right now, it's like I prompt it, it'll do it for me, and then I kind of keep iterating. And this is like a 24 from 6 months to 24 hour cycle is what I am operating on. A lot of people who are good at, like, if you have the command of the language, you can, and there's going to be sooner or later, what do you say, hyper localized AI platforms, or maybe just like, then you can prompt them in Hindi, Marathi, whatever is your comfortable language. And then you will see this like another next wave of innovation, tech. There's people out there who have these like wacky ideas. You know how it kind of works.
Yeah, I also feel like hyper personalization is the next big thing. I think people are very specific about their behaviors, the brands they are buying, the people they are associating with.
Mm.
Um, I think one of the pointers that we like for our conversation was also like augmented shopping and shopping experiences. There are, I think one, I'm forgetting the name of the startup that recently got funded and was all over the the startup ecosystem. What they were trying to do is just like you mentioned that mainly for shopping platforms, like you put your picture and you can see how it look on your body and stuff like that. I think a lot of
Mintra, or you're talking about
yeah, so I think Gleam, something like that. I'm forgetting the name, but I'm sure someone like Mintra maybe probably will acquire.
They are the Flipkart or Mintra.
Yeah.
I mean, Lenskart did it.
Yeah, that
Initially when
glasses.
does like 360 face, and then you can try your glasses on. Now it's like you take a picture, or just from far away you can try on your full clothes and
Yeah.
shoes and whatever. So that all of that is like possible happening. People are pushing limits there. The only thing is the, what do you say, I don't know, like the power consumption of the whole thing. That's the only thing that's kind of stopping us from happening. But like hyper personalization in terms of, with the advent of AI, the if you feed it enough data, it knows trends. It can tell you what is going to happen next. So you don't need to kind of look out for data yourself. The AI will generate the entire campaign for you basis the trend that might happen in the future. Because the amount of knowledge and the amount of like model building that is happening in that space, uh, I think you will get like, as if you walk into a store, basis your built, it'll give you choices of favorite 4 jackets that you would probably like, basis your browsing history on Instagram, or like, I don't know, like maybe Chrome or whatever. And if you're walking into a car store, or maybe let's say buying a house, it'll be able to tell you basis your, what do you say, past, like where have you grown up, where were you born and brought up, the kind of family you come from, financials. It'll be able to predict and give you like, this is going to be a house that you will like the most. So those kind of spaces I think are going to exist, and I think maybe they do exist, we don't know about them.
Yeah.
So people are doing that kind of innovation using AI as well. So immersive XR, AR, these kind of things. Yeah, and these are going to become like our daily part and parcel of life soon enough. Because like I've seen people, so the building blocks of AR and VR is 3D objects. So, and you can now prompt them on ChatGPT or, like Midjourney.
Yeah.
You can pull them out and then build them into. So it's getting easier with AI. So I think that will happen.
Even in retail and B2B spaces. So I'm consulting one of this startup. It's called Brisk. What they are trying to do is basically building ecosystems for warehouses. So like they have like a whole. So like one guy can literally come and pick up the stuff, like the whole experience through, just the cameras and the software.
Nice.
Stuff like that, so that there's literally like no person needs to be there, and like things can move. Even something like that Amazon also did, right? You just go inside, pick up stuff, and it just gets paid, tech like that. But I don't know how much it is gonna blow up, or like how much it is gonna useful for people, because there's so many quick commerce that's getting normalized, and people are not stepping. So I'm just, like a couple of days back, I was just taking a walk around my house in HSR, and I've noticed, and I think I was in a cab or something. I've noticed that bunch of these uh you know grocery stores or like grocery chains, they were empty. Like I was mindful about while I was looking at them. I was just like crossing the road, and I was like, okay. this one used to be like a big store by Godrej or whatever, and there was not even a single person inside.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a Bangalore issue. Maybe like it's maybe in other cities people are still going out buying things.
Yeah, I think it is very metro centric trend, is what I would say. There are definitely tier two cities which are tech forward. Like there also we do have a lot of these, but I think there's a big unlock in terms of what do you say? Um, I think 70-80% of people are still, like, given the population of India, there's 70 people, 70% people I know, I feel that are still not using those because they are like all tier 3, tier 2.
Yeah.
And then there's that 20% that is driving this whole change. So it is, I feel like it's a metro centric trend, but yes, I agree with you that earlier it used to be a very different experience. You would step out and then go into a grocery store versus you don't have to step out for that, versus you can kind of save your time by doing something else productive.
Yeah. I do it. I do it once in a while. I don't know if a lot of people are doing it. It just once in a while I just take a stroll. Like I just go inside like a big grocery store or something, and I pick up like what's new out there, and I take a picture and put it into my LLM. So I have one chat box that talks about like healthy living, what you should eat and what shouldn't be eating. So I just keep feeding these datas like the nutrients and stuff.
Correct.
And tell me the secrets about this and what do you think are the things that can be harmful. Stuff like that. So I think there's a use case, but I'm not sure if a lot of people are doing it. And I mean, for me, I'm only just going there just to like check it out because they have all the popular products and also like a lot of new ones. What I've been also seeing that I think we've discussed in one of the podcasts where we are talking about the future of the retail. That a lot of D2C brands are pushing themselves to have a store. Like Mokobara, for example, like they are blowing up. Maybe they don't need to, not really sure, but they don't maybe need to have like a store. But maybe they are like it's affecting their revenue and they may be making more money with these stores. And not really sure about is it? Do you think is it like the look and feel like the people want to touch what
The
they?
same thing that we were just discussing earlier, like having that experience
Yeah.
of the brand. So these stores do come up when a person is planning to buy something that needs to last long. So for us, that is very tactile. Like our mindsets are done or like hardwired to think of it like if you're buying something that you need to have for a long time, like a bag or a luggage suitcase or whatever, those things you're buying, you need to check for quality, and those things might happen over your phone with certain kind of certified check marks or tick boxes and all that. But at the same time, for you to be certain about something, you need to be there in person to get that tactile feel out of it. So I think these brands are doing that because they feel like, I think people require for us to be on ground presence to generate more. So like Mokobara was, I think, digital first brand is what am I understanding it, and then they kind of evolved into becoming like this like on ground stores as well. So I think that's the reason.
Yeah.
Or it could be, I don't know.
So we work with bunch of VCs and like I keep talking to them about like what brands are gonna like they looking to invest. And one of the VC mentioned that they were like a lot of such brands like D2C brands are coming to them and asking them for funds to start their stores because of the same reason, which is that's not a D2C brand. It's just another consumer brand.
Yeah.
I've been seeing this pattern for sure. Not sure if you've come across this, and also seeing like a lot of like a pattern where in like a very famous like maybe 27th Main and HSR places like these the major places where the public footfall is a lot. every 6 months there are different stores coming. Like one store starts and like just because it's so expensive, they just like something else comes.
Yeah, it's like that slap or slop.
Yeah. It's like so it's very uncertain. So I'm actually very curious as to what is gonna be like the future of retail. I think that Amazon. I'm forgetting what was it. Amazon Zoom. Where you just go inside the store and you just pick up veggies or whatever, and you just don't need to pay. What's it called? Amazon what? Centric. Yeah. I think they've named it something. I'm forgetting.
I've not. I'll have to look this up.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
I think that's so. Yeah, it's like you're going to in a store, you're picking up like cereal, veggies, whatever,
Mm.
and you literally go out and just go to your car, and it'll all get billed, all get sorted out.
Lovely.
And
And it's like that decathlon thing. I've only seen it at decathlon.
yeah, but even
You
it,
drop it.
oh, Decathlon is also pretty. That experience is also pretty dope. I think Decathlon, like brand like Decathlon, is something that's that and they have leveraged a lot of like great tech in terms of their retail experience.
Hmm.
Like for example, especially in a country like India, like if I'm because
Their
people are going.
warehouse design is also pretty sick though. Like
Yeah.
the way they have designed the whole thing, and you come out into that billing section. So there's like a giant entrance, like you're entering like a big place, big space. Like there's nothing in stopping you, and there's like after a point there's going to be like a repair shop or cycle repair
Yeah.
shop or something. It's generally the same blueprint, and then you enter as like stalls, and then there's going to be like one entrance into the whole maze, and then you go through that maze. That's a like part of an experience design, right? Like you're trying to build that, and then you have that exit spot where you have these small knickknacks, and then
Yeah.
that billing line also has these. I think that's like your retail stores are also designed like that.
Yeah.
You have those chocolates and your candies and like fancy colorful stuff, or like knickknacks stored outside, where if you did not come across, you would rather save space in the main where they can buy like big chunks of stuff or like big money items, versus having these smaller stuff at the end towards where you can utilize the space itself to maybe create racks out of
Yeah.
these things, where you can like have in like for lines, you instead of having those what do you call them, cordoning of cloth thing,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
you have like these shelves stacked with this stuff.
Yeah. I think that's again so people like there are a lot of SaaS who is solving for this actually. Like how a lot of stores are losing a lot of money just because they are not putting products in the shelf in the like the right way, which is which was like
Oh,
like because a lot of people who are
so why are they doing that? So is it like for them to be able to spend, like customer spends more time?
I think it's a mix of number of things. It's just sometimes these folks have thousands and thousands of stores, hundreds of stores. I think it's also to maintain the consistency as to what people are buying throughout, like the retail habits. And I think mixing it with tech and behaviors and kind of giving them analytics and analytical data and like data to tell them, okay, what are the habits of people going to a certain section and stuff like that. I still need to dig down into it, but it sounds like it has a lot. It has to do with something with how people are, people's habit of going to a mall. There's like huge mall called Lulu Mall for and you have veggies corner and like baked stuff and stuff like that. So pretty exciting. I think, and talking about like like retail store, like I think Decathlon is bang on. Like I think there needs to be more brands like them. What I also like about them is like how casual they are, and at the same time that touch like they've built like a whole responsiveness throughout, like their app, shopping experience, their product design, and how they have almost 28 brands under one this thing. So
I think IKEA is another one of those that is doing similar stuff here as well. So like the one that we have here in Mangaluru, That is also
Never been there, but yeah, I've heard a lot of.
like 3 floors,
Hmm.
3 or 2 floors, I think. And it's like giant. It's real. It's like a. If you want to go there, you're going there for like spending an entire day. It's
Yeah.
like a picnic or an outing.
Yeah.
You go there, you will buy things that you don't even need, but then those are like, since they have cracked that segment of, what do you say, value for money kind of furniture or those
Yup.
kind of utility stuff. So
Whole
it's-
Bangalore is. By the way, fun fact: IKEA is using world's 1% of the wood. That's something that I recently found out. And I was like, how sustainable are you? Which is super interesting. A lot of people have said for a long time that print media is dead. I think it's so back, right? I mean, a lot of packaging design, like people are trying, like quick commerce brands, they are trying to like have like a storytelling on the packaging. You can scan QR code and it's taking to places. How do you think brands have opportunities in this space?
So, I mean, as long as you're going to be buying physical products, like products, as long as these, any product that exists, which is of like physical or tactile in nature, you will need print design. And then if you're talking about print media, it's the consumption might get low, but you'll always need some amount of print media. Media is going to be there, dude. Like, books, novels, these kind of things will. It's fine. There's a Kindle. There is a like course books are all online. PDFs are existing, but at the same time, like the overall ratio of print to digital might have switched, but print I don't think is going anywhere. Like it's going to be around until and unless you just turn yourself into an AI entity and this every product is digital.
You're yeah, talking about converting yourself into like building another brain, and how much AI are you using in your day to day life, and or just want to know your like like how much AI is involved in your process, considering the considering that you're maybe working with a lot of like confidential brands and companies with like great strategies and like really high stakes. And another like extended question to this is also, I've also been seeing companies building AI departments. I think we were also talking about it. What are your thoughts around that? But I'm really curious to know, like on an individual level, like you're a person who manages design and like playing a very important role into the design pipeline. How much AI are you using?
A lot, I would say, in short, but then I would like, so my process is a lot now AI driven and heavy. Earlier, it was like I would do research, search thing online myself, that I still do. But like if it's like a short turnaround project where things need to go out quickly, faster, and what has happened is the thing that I was talking about earlier. The process of that 6 month iterations has like capsuled into 24 hours. Similar stuff has happened with me here now where I work as well. The process of it is still there. We have like our own confidential model of OpenAI that doesn't train on external data, or not, neither does it kind of sends out data to because of the confidential nature of things. But what I have done is I've fed it, like I've created my own like small mini GPT sort of, where I've fed it like 50 different design books in PDF format.
Oh, wow.
So it knows the taste that I have, it knows and understands the prompts that I'm giving and the kind of output I would expect. And then I have also kind of given it like time and again.
What are these books? Just curious to know.
A lot of brand identity design books. So like Alina Wheeler's brand identity. There's how to be a designer without losing your soul, or like there's one more by Pentagram. That there's a person, I forgot the name
Yeah.
of the book. Why? That's okay. Anyway, so there's like multiple books that I had that I have the hard copies of. I found the PDFs of those books, downloaded those from like Amazon or wherever I could find them. There are a lot of these in open source platforms as well. So I fed it all into my GPT. I've created like one for just brand guidelines that helps me craft narratives for the brand guidelines, and one is for these logo iterations or like identity iterations or like graphic design, this kind of stuff. So there's two GPTs that I use. And there's another one which is just for copywriting, where I've fed it like a lot of these well written, like, books that are out there in the market. So I use that as my references. And then when I kind of start working on it and start prompting it, there's always like a base level of creativity in the output that is coming towards me. So that helps me a lot and then kind of speeds up the whole process. Then once I have done that, now what I do is like I'll ask, we've started like using these Imagen, VO, 11 Labs, all of these tools. And you ask GPT to give you a prompt, and it'll give you a prompt to feed into those for a specific output you want. That output reference is coming from those books. So there's like a tiny thread of design and like what I like in terms of the tastes of design that always reflects in the output that I'm trying to generate. So right now, like we are building full like ad movies out of just prompts, and including voiceovers, subtitles, shots, putting it all together. And then image generation was something that we were doing for a lot of these quick workshops and products that we were trying to test out for. Packaging design was a very major thing where we were using these generated images for a lot of the time. Like I did like an entire project. I think it's on my website as well, where I generated the central core graphics, which would have taken like 7 to 8 days of proper like product food photography, and then I did that whole thing in like 7 hours and came up with like that idea of this is going to be the design. And then you can actually, it's like so high quality output that you can actually put it on print ready, production ready file and die line, and then you can get it printed. So I have been using AI fairly like 70-80% of my tasks are like always AI heavy. There's 70-80% of the times where I'm using AI to do a lot of conversations, drafting emails. All of that is like for like it's given that it's gonna be using that platform. But then additional to that, now I've started using AI to code stuff. So if I'm looking or doing some kind of trying to build something new, innovative, or like a app or a experience, I'll ask AI to code for me. It will not be the perfect code, and I'm not a
But at least to like move it forward.
yeah, I'm not a developer, but I know the tools that if I put this code into, it'll give me some kind of an output, and then you take it from there. You keep iterating, keep going back and forth. So this is like yesterday, not even yesterday, like 2 days ago, I literally did this. Went online, found a computer science course, looked up all the course books that are there, fed it into a GPT and created one for myself. So now I have like a
Making it sound so easy.
yeah, like
I'm sure you need some like critical thinking and like of course your personal mindset of how you have to what do you need to it's also like what do you need to type, what do you need to put in to get out a certain
yeah,
solution.
like that's what. So like if you have certain kind of a output in mind, if you put it in like a question, or let's say if you're expecting certain kind of an output, I generally start with, since I've already put in so many parameters of like books is there's like negative prompts, positive prompts, all of those things are there. So I kind of start with a vague space with like, this is what I'm looking for. How can I do this? I ask it to do it for me. And then it'll give me these are the processes, these are the things that I can help you with. What do you want? and then I kind of take it from there. So it starts very vague, and then it kind of slowly comes into that space of like very specific question of like, can you code me this functionality for this particular application or for this particular tool, where I can put in that code and it will do these things, and it will give you that code and then you can extract out of it. So similar for like design process
Yeah.
as well.
What about so a couple of days? It's I think it's a I've been talking a lot about it because I'm just curious. We do a lot of projects where we are making pitch deck, investor deck, building some kind of sort of a verbal branding, and we have writers and strategists in house. But like, I just want to know from you, are companies even hiring writers anymore? Because I think product managers are typing the prompt and coming out with like product UX copies and stuff. Just curious to know, like, are we giving any value to writing anymore or not?
I do. I mean, a lot of people think AI can do it for you. If it works for them, great. But good copy is has that similar process of good design, good code. So all of the code and or all of the design that I'm talking about, there is a certain lack of, there are gaps that if you are not a good designer, or let's say for me that's my field, so I can only comment about that. But if you're, and I can like certain amount of copywriting or like script reading, all of those things I've done, uh, you can see the gaps. Honestly, if you have any sort of inkling for writing, you will be able to spot those gaps. There are people who are using um OpenAI or any other platform for copywriting. They are doing it, but what I think is these guys would need to hire, let's say instead of 5 they would need 1. That good copywriter would be able to generate better things for them directly, instead of having like 5 copywriters jamming on something and then they come up with like a one collective copy for one article at the end of the day. Instead of that, that one single person who's good at AI prompting and is also a copywriter can give them better outputs. So the demand might get less. Same goes for designers as well. Same any platform. So any like whenever these kind of things happen, this like a paradigm shift sort of spaces, what goes down is the number of people, but then what goes up is a number of people who are able to use that tech. Paper to computer, same thing, right? Like you, everyone was like, we are gonna be stuck in our own thing, like we have been doing this thing for we on registers or papers, and we'll only be doing this. So those people get left behind versus people who said, okay, we have to do the same task but on a computer. Same goes for what is happening right now. If you're good with AI, you will be hired. There's no like the what when you're saying writers who are, people think they are copywriters, which is fine for if it works for them. They don't need that level of copywriting. So you can prompt it to say, I need like SEO forward copy for a website that I'm doing or a product that I'm doing where it needs to get clicks. You can use that. So like, but the content or the person who's behind like a YouTube thumbnail where people are doing like AI generated YouTube thumbnails for revenue, clickbaits, all of that, that is going to exist always. But at the same time, the quality work that needs to happen, the demand will not go down for those kind of things. You'll need to keep honing your things, and then you need to kind of have AI as your assistant, like a personal assistant. Every person should have a, let's say, AI minion for them to be able to kind of excel right now. So if you know how to mold AI in your own directions, I don't think it's going to be a problem for you as a person.
Yeah. Just curious to know from you about the maybe how the branding process have changed, like especially around like in recent times, in last couple of years. So you do like a lot of discovery with the client, understand them, what's their vision, brand values and stuff like that, what kind of tone of voice they want, maybe like a logo or a visual style. Other than this, how how do you think it can be more effective? And maybe it could be from your own learning. And what do you think could be like the future, like a branding process for the future? So, for example, if there's some entrepreneur that's listening to the podcast, like what are the habits that they should follow, or like even to designers, according to you?
So for branding, I would say what has changed is like a process where you would ask me, I need a logo, and let's say, or I need a brand identity for my business. Uh, like the process for me largely has remained the same, but there is always like the whole thing has accelerated further. Now, for a workshop design, for me to understand your business, your product, or whatever you're trying to brand, I would come up with like, I'll write those like questions, I'll go through that activity, I'll go through that whole DFI, desirability, feasibility, that kind of those three things. And then I will also be doing the understanding your target audience, their pain points, and then solving for the whole thing. And the process or the time it would have taken me to come up with the whole material for me to do that activity with you has shortened significantly because of AI. The other thing that has changed is like, if you're someone who's there, I don't have the time for this like workshop and all of that, I would be like, okay, fine, you don't have the time now. I think this is also like the latest OpenAI or Midjourney explorations. They have kind of developed it into where now we have that space where the images are not those like, or the logo designs are not that kind of like weird
Yeah,
AI. You can sense,
you can see that. Yeah,
it's AI generated,
black.
right? And now they have, yeah, they have fixed that. So now what I do is like, okay, is this the space, visual space you want to go into? If you say yes, I'll give you like 5 different visual spaces, and then I will gauge from that what kind of visual space or like you want your brand to go into, right? Basis our conversations or something. Conversations will happen. Then you'll will sit and do that, and then after you have decided, okay, this is the visual space that we want to go into, I will then handcraft that same thing. This is all up until this point was AI generated. Then I'll go back and maybe handcraft that and send it. So those what do you say, high visibility and high impact touch points of the brand will still be handcrafted, but then the graphics or the imagery that you need, those things I will use AI to generate and show it to you. I'll give you that brand world, the whole entire brand world, in like lesser amount of time. And then once that is sorted, we'll probably move into a space where, okay, fine, you like this whole entire, these are the two directions that this particular visual symbol could have taken your thing into, and then you like this particular one, then we'll go back and handcraft that whole thing for you so that you can use it. And then we can push it further into n number of mediums like print, digital, video, XR, 3D, whatever you want. So that is the process, and all of this has accelerated a lot more than how it used to be. This whole process would have taken me probably 6 months before AI. Now it takes like one month at max, 4 weeks, one for identity, one for extensions, one for finalization, and one more for like videos, these and the. So I'll give you like a full brand package done in like a month's time, including like videos, copy, and other. So tone of voice. So you define the rules still like by yourself and by the conversations that you've had, but then you will be able to apply those rules faster using AI, is what I think.
Very, very interesting and very thorough. So what I've been seeing is that in order to like come out as a brand that everyone notices, you have to do everything. You have to be omni-channel, number one. You should be doing XR stuff. I think XR is something that should be like it. I think moving forward. So I think from where I'm like I've been around design, like around understanding about brands for like almost 7-8 years. What I've also been seeing is the verbal identity is something that was not like not a lot of people were like focusing on it, but now suddenly like even with a lot of AI, like people want to build their tone of voice. Sonic branding, like a lot of people want different sounds in their brands. I think we talked about that as well. And I think I think these things are just gonna become like normalized, since we are able to achieve such long processes into 1 month. So yeah, crazy time for to kick off brands, and for existing brands to like do great communication.
Like one quick bite I can give you on sonic branding. So earlier, like you were asking, right? Like, would writers, do we need writers? Musicians, same. So
Yeah.
with like advent of AI, there are people, you don't need writers. Sorry, you don't need musicians if you know exact notes of a sonic brand like that you want to create. Let's say a logo reveal. If you know those notes, if you know basics of music, and you tell the AI to C9 A4 C9 A4, you make this, and then can you make these you play these notes on a flute or a piano or a synthesizer, and then you enter, it'll give you that 4 note melody for a logo reel.
Have you tried it? It sounds crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
I never thought of it.
dude, if you know,
Like I've
if
heard.
you have GarageBand on your laptop, it's
Yeah.
a free tool for everyone who has a MacBook. You have that keyboard, and you can experiment with what keys to play with. And then if you like those 2 keys, you can ask the AI to give you a melody based off of those keys and notes that you have on there.
Yeah.
And you have your sonic brand ready. So having that kind of an understanding and logic is what
To be a
requires.
musician for sure, or at least be like have good taste in music.
Exactly. So that is also good enough
Yeah.
right now. That's the bar has kind of gotten down, and I would not say that that particular thing would be like at par with Airtel's sonic melody of the world, or like let's say
You can't
yeah.
replace AR Rahman.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't do that, of course. But if you need something, some kind of like a quick fix or these kind of, you can explore with that using AI. So that's something.
Yeah, because I've only seen Beethoven and Suno. I think where you just need to write these prompts.
Yeah.
But I think you can be as specific as you said, but I never thought it from that angle.
Yeah. You can do that.
Really, what a time to be alive.
Yeah. It's fun though. Like every day you go to work and it's like, what can I do today? Then you kind of not limit yourself or not bucket yourself into like specific task or a role. Then you can be like a proper, like anything you want to be.
Yeah. I've been noticing that previously what used to be super common is that each tech company or any company used to have like a 1 year plan, 3 year like 3 months plan, 6 months plan. And I think it's not working anymore, like because in every they plan like a big giant company plans, or even a mid-sized company, they plan something. They want to do they want to build this product in next 3 months or next 6 months, and like by the end of this month there's some like everything changed. Like, so how are you like navigating these changes, or do you think you're not facing them at all, like considering the large projects that we are talking about with like longer duration?
No, we do have. So there are different kinds of lengths. If you're specifically talking about projects, or are you talking about generally what's
Both.
going on around in the world?
Both.
So like the change bit is doable, because like I think it's something that's like person specific. Some people do like change, some people don't. I'm fine with change. So I kind of am working on a lot of these things when I'm like all of this what we were just talking about is something, it's like keeping me future proof. My basic role is going to be still that. So like core is sorted, and you're trying to explore in this space and I have that inclination and liking for like going into the unknown and this sort of like, and I'm like, okay, fine, let's keep exploring this. Like, what would you do if you like 15 years you're doing just branding, logo design? You'd be like fairly adept at doing that stuff, but then what more can you do as a human being? That kind of a thinking, if it exists, I don't think you'll face challenges with changes. if the change is happening.
Yeah.
For us as well in the ecosystem that we are at, it's a forever changing. I've been here for 2.5 years, and the day I joined from there until now, a lot of things have changed. Like when I had joined, this is like first model of Firefly had come out, 2022,
Yeah.
2023, and we were just using Firefly because there was just that. Then Midjourney came. Midjourney was there, but the images that it used to generate was not not usable at all in like a proper context. Let's say if you want to do something. So and then they kept evolving, and then now it's in a space where I don't even need to open my Illustrator or don't even have to ask my designers to open it. Like just prompt it. If you prompt it correct, you don't need like Adobe Cloud. It's in that space now.
My inner designer is just getting uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Go spend like 10 years using Illustrator, and now like I want to use a tool, dude. Like, oh yeah.
correct. Yeah, I know.
But you know what?
Same.
You have to get comfortable with it.
See, it's you shouldn't be threatened by it. That's what I was saying earlier as well. Like, if you know how to prompt it, you will not diminish in value. You will, because this is just that you know how to use Illustrator as well. Now you can't send out a JPEG or a PNG to a person to high production, right? You'll have to convert that into
Yeah.
vectors.
Yeah.
So those things are going to be there.
Like maybe maybe
Save time on
junking,
and
maybe the process like is getting shorter, but maybe not till now. Maybe that can change in like 2 years. But so even for us as an agency, we heavily use AI, but not for the results, right? It's for the process and to come to the result. But I think for result you have to create vectors in order to like,
correct.
you know,
Yeah. So like I was saying, like I would create and generate these things, graphics on a packaging.
yeah,
But then you have to, if you're sending it out for production, you'll have to put it on Dieline. So you need to know the tool, InDesign or Illustrator or Photoshop, whatever. You need to know that, and you can create that end thing so that when you send it to the printer or your manufacturing units and all that's going to be there.
I think you are in a space where, in a special space where you've worked in different industries, and now you're responsible for like one of the most important companies that are getting built today and maybe in the future. Where are we heading? What are you trying to do? What's the best case scenario for you? As you know, building around branding or building a brand in general and experiences. What do you think are we? Where are we heading? What's the future for you and also the brands, the brand building space and the XR space?
Like the future for the industry largely looks like it's inclined towards usage of AI is what I feel. The hard skills are not gonna go away. The thing is like implementation of those hard skills is gonna be assisted and accelerated using AI. That's what I think about the industry. There is going to be a lot of quick iterative changes that are gonna keep happening until we reach that flight height where you like this is just the evolution happening around us as we are growing up as well. So very exciting, interesting time to be alive. But for like, yeah, I mean, for me, I would say like I right now I'm in just design field. I would want to like I'm slowly picking up so many others because I'm trying to blend my engineering and design. So like 10 years of engineering experience, 10 years of design. I'm trying to blend that together into a space where I can kind of, because both of those things I have fair amount of experience and I'm not afraid of both of them. Like earlier, if you have certain kind of unknowns in your learning, those have vanished for at least these two fields. So I'm gonna be looking forward or looking to blend these two skill sets that I have into one, and let's see where that takes me.
Oh, Yeah, thanks a lot for a great and insightful conversation, Anshul. I hope hope to catch you again for for a round two.
Oh yeah, awesome. You guys are. Do you have like a what do you say seasons for this? Or
Yeah, I mean we were planning to do like a roundtable of sorts, like a marketing roundtable or a design roundtable, like a AI roundtable.
yeah,
So we could do that. Some
I'd definitely be happy to join you there. Let me know when you do that. Uh, yeah, I hope it's not going to be the same amount of hectic week that this was. that that would have been a lot more easier. I would have had a little more. What do you say? Clarity of thought if the kind of week that I had was a little easier.
Yeah, that's how it goes. I think we got a lot of insights for sure. So don't worry about that.
Yes. I hope.
All right, thanks a lot for having on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.